Got to tell you, I'm a little jealous of Mike right now. This is another episode of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, Pittsburgh Sports Now, Steelers Now, and all throughout the Now family of networks. Another week, and we're still here. And Mike is here, but joining us from his beach house on vacation. So appreciate Mike still doing the show while on vacation. It may lag the connection a little bit there, but he's enjoying the nice weather in his
hang with us here.
Yeah, his undisclosed beach house location. I'm Mike Asti, of course. This is Mic'd Up, presented by Martin Lawn Services. You can contact Doug Martin at 412-849-5894. It's going to be Steelers. It's going to be a Steelers show. It's been Steelers coverage, but of course, this is now into the preseason, so a lot to talk about around the Pittsburgh Steelers. We are going to touch
one second. I want to interrupt you.
Sure.
I want to interrupt you for just 1 second. I just want to say what a heck of a job you and this is just truth, but the heck of a job you and Alan did and the whole team, Cal, Nick, everybody, but especially you and Alan and Ed Thompson in Canton this weekend. We churned out a lot of material, a lot of fresh material, probably more than anybody. It was good, and I know you guys worked your ass off. So I just want to say, very impressive of I think what we, as a site, as a network, were able to put out there for Steeler fans. And tip of the cap to you and you, Alan, and Ed.
Well, I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, it was a cool weekend. It was a cool experience, but it was definitely a lot of work, especially when we're going to get to that too, with so many Steelers in one weekend. So I definitely appreciate that. I saw the numbers look like it was a successful weekend for the network, to say the very least. And I do think we were right up there with anybody else in terms of coverage, but that includes some asinine stories that I'll tell you off the air sometimes as well. But we're going to touch on all of that. The Canton weekend, positive and negatives of inducting that many in one weekend, because I do think there were some negatives in having that many from one team, in that many in one class overall. I do actually think the only thing that wasn't touched on that much, and it wasn't that we didn't touch on it, but it wasn't touched on that much by the Hall of Fame or by anyone really, was Bill Nunn and the people getting inducted that had passed away. They really basically got glossed over, but that's what happens when you have 19 people or whatever it was getting inducted, 18, I think, that were living. We're going to touch there. Also, Joe Haden making it clear he wants to retire a Pittsburgh Steeler. Not a huge surprise there, but is that really going to happen, and how much pressure is on him to perform to make that happen? And Kevin Dotson also in the news based on Mike Tomlin's comments about him and his progress to this point. So, Mike, we'll get underway with Joe Haden. That's the most recent out of those topics there. Joe Haden making it clear he wants to retire a Steeler. I don't think you and I are surprised by that. He's been very vocal that he likes playing under Mike Tomlin. Honestly, some Browns fans and even some Browns media that I ran into down there, they always make the joke. They felt like it was almost a little bit of collusion getting Haden to the Steelers, just because the second they dumped him, within 20 minutes, there were already rumors he was talking with Tomlin. So they all think that happened prior to the actual release. But he's with the Steelers now, certainly been productive when healthy. That's always been the thing with Haden. He is an aging player, but he wants to retire a Steeler. Do you see that happening? And what needs to occur for that to happen? As I do think, and as I knew this was bound to happen, we end up with a connection issue with Mike. Mike, you still there? There you go. think we're still having the connection issues with Mike there. Might need him to leave and connect back in. Try that one there. There you go. I've dealt with connection issues all through my career there. I thought maybe his sound was getting on, since why I didn't jump into over top of him there. But we'll see if we can get some sound there connected with Mike. We do need that more than almost even the video. Either that, you can actually just try calling in potentially. Maybe we don't need the visual. Let me see if this one's going to work differently. And we're getting somewhere here again. Mic'd up, presented by Martin Lawn Services. Technological issues here, but Mike is on vacation. So this is Mike joining us from vacay. I think we're still having the audio issues here. What I will touch on here, he might end up scrapping this show. So I will touch on right now my trip in Canton. I do honestly believe that while it was cool, if you can avoid it, and I'm sure maybe if they can avoid it, they will be avoiding it. Inducting that many in one weekend does cause some negatives. I do think certainly the ones that had passed away, Bill Nunn, for example, was a little bit glossed over. You get a video package there, but Ed Sable as well. You didn't get anyone to come on stage as a relative of theirs in past classes, like Junior Seau when he passed away. His family members were able to be on there and give a speech. And I do get Junior Seau a little bit more in terms of stature than, say, for example, somebody who's a team builder who had been gone a long time. Hearing from Junior Seau's family certainly could mean more. Mike, do we have you back?
I'm here.
Okay, Mike. We have Mike back here calling in. This is definitely good enough here with our technological issues here while he's on vacation. So, Mike, I don't know how much of that we got there. Just want to get your thoughts on Haden and if he's going to be able to return to the Steelers, if his dreams can come true, and what needs to occur, because obviously they're going to rely on him a little bit more this year than even last year. His health is certainly a question, and then I'll get back to my Canton story there.
Yeah, I would like to. I'd start off by saying I'd like to see Joe Haden come back. I think what we've seen over the last few years as far as character guys in the Steelers locker room, I think they're sort of lacking that. But I think Haden is one of those guys. And I think his presence would be valuable. I think obviously Mike Tomlin likes him. However, we also know that this is a business.
Right.
And what is Joe Haden willing to take to want to finish his career here with the Steelers? As you know, 31, 32-year-old cornerbacks in the NFL doesn't happen a lot as far as good ones. So the Steelers can't be too loyal to Joe Haden. I'd like to see him back. Yeah. Maybe he could take on a role as like a Willie Gay when he finished his career, or some of the other veteran Steeler cornerbacks. If he's willing to come back for a team-friendly price, I'd be all for it. But with Minka and T.J. Watt getting ready to collect big time, the Steelers have to be very cautious about how much money they want to throw over to an aging cornerback.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Obviously, Joe Haden wants to be a Steeler. I don't think that's even news. He's made that clear for a while. I was happy to actually see him get his last contract to keep staying in Pittsburgh. But his health issues, the fact that he is an aging corner, it's almost a risk that they're relying on him so much, but that is the situation now. So if he can come back on a team-friendly deal as a locker room leader, as a veteran who's experienced and really experienced most of the trials and tribulations of a professional career, I think he'd be great to have not only on the field, because he certainly can still make some plays, had some big picks last year, but just as a locker room leader in a couple years. And even now, this team is progressively getting younger. Once Ben retires, maybe Cam Hayward retires, this team certainly is going to be built and very fueled by a lot of youth. So if Joe Haden's able to keep his body right and still wants to play, even though he is playing a position that once you get to a certain age, usually you're not nearly as good, and he does it on a team-friendly deal, then he almost is a de facto coach as well as being a productive player, and you try to find ways to still use him, not that he isn't still good now. So that would be great. I think it would certainly be positive for the Steelers, but I don't know him to be somebody that just all of a sudden wants to play for the team, the league minimum or whatever the team's going to offer. So maybe he'll do that. Maybe his happiness is worth more than money. He certainly made money in his career, but it's going to have to be for the right price because as Art Rooney II has said, TJ Watt and his deal is the number one priority. We actually can touch on that later in the week because that is becoming another story with the fact that he is not practicing, waiting to sign that deal, when that's going to happen, what money figure that's going to be. That could certainly hinge on whether or not Ben could even return next year and how much of a team-friendly deal he'd have to take for one more year if he would play well enough to do that, because that's been discussed. So it's all about what TJ gets money-wise, and then they may have more money next year to play with the cap and probably Juju being gone and TV deals. But still, be great to have Joe. I don't think anybody's going to say if Joe Haden wants to come back for the right price that they wouldn't want him with the Steelers, but it'll have to be the right price, and how far down is he willing to go to get that to be the right price. Mike joining us here for anybody tuning in here over the phone, just to let everybody know now due to our technical issues earlier. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Joe Haden strikes me as the type of guy that's he sees the big picture. I don't
right.
think he.
I think so.
I don't think he is thinking of himself as still a top 10 cornerback in the NFL. And I realize he just strikes me as a guy that realizes what's going on. I guess we don't know. It could come down to his relationships on the team. I think he has a lot of good ones with guys on the defense. And how smart has he been with his money? Is money going to be a priority for him in this last contract, or is it about familiarity, the relationships he has on the team and with Mike Tomlin? So I have a sneaky suspicion though that this thing's going to somehow get done, and he's going to get some money that he's comfortable with and something that's not going to completely kill the Steelers.
Yeah. And I think his comfortability and his familiarity and the fact that he likes Mike Tomlin so much is maybe the nail on the head, because he talked about wanting to play for Mike Tomlin before he actually did play for Mike Tomlin and how much he's loved playing for Mike Tomlin now on the Steelers. So every year he just raves about loving to play for Mike Tomlin. And a lot of guys do. He's certainly a polarizing coach, but a lot of guys have liked playing for Mike Tomlin. He certainly has been a player coach. And some have used it as a criticism of Tomlin, but certainly a player like Joe Haden loves it. And Joe Haden, Mike, all he needs to do in his career, all that he wants to play for, all that he brings up, all that's left to do is to have some postseason team success. He's been a top corner. He's been the best corner in football at one point. He's been a Pro Bowl corner. I don't know if he's ever going to be enshrined in Canton, where I was just this past weekend, but he's really as close as he's going to get to that. That career, that Pro Bowl elite career is gone, but he still can be very, very productive and be a good player. But it is about now team success. Even though they lost in the first round, he wasn't able to even be a part of that game because of COVID. So he's hit some really, really bad luck. Obviously started with the Browns when they weren't good. So he's never really been able to taste the postseason. So getting him at least that game, if not trying to get that elusive championship, is all really he's playing for now. So maybe it's with the Steelers. Maybe if they have a really bad year, and we still don't know how they're going to do, maybe he'll change his tune and want to go elsewhere to win a title. So it may hinge a lot on how the team does. He might be willing to take a team-friendly deal, Mike, for whatever money they offer if they're a championship contender. But if they fall off and Ben has to retire and they don't have the quarterback position solidified and they don't know between Rudolph and Haskins and both of them, sink because nothing's guaranteed right now. Both of them have not certainly grabbed any bull by the horns. Maybe he would eventually say, no, I got to jump on the Patriots ship or whatever the players have done in the past if they turn it around. So who knows? I do want to keep it moving here, though, especially with Mike on vacation. I don't want to keep him from vacation too much, but Mike, I want to get your thoughts, then I'll go back to mine because I touched on them a little bit here while we were getting you back on the line. Obviously, the Canton experience was awesome, and obviously the Hall of Fame does it first class. They had to induct, they had to hand out 18 gold jackets, 19 living members, even more if you're including those who passed away. That's a lot for one weekend. A lot of those were Pittsburgh Steelers greats. A lot of gold jackets. Current Hall of Famers were there, 100 exactly. That's the largest contingent of current Hall of Famers that were there. I was surprised by some that were not, that are very much living age and very much in the media. I was very surprised. I'll throw this out there. I was very surprised Shannon Sharpe on his national TV vacation did not roll up to Canton at all. I will say I was surprised that Terry Bradshaw covered the game, worked it on Fox, but did not stay for the ceremony at all. I know the past relationship with the Steelers, but that's so by reports and so many people think that that's been improved. I don't know now because he wasn't there at all. Brett Favre, I cannot believe Brett Favre looks to soak up every camera in existence, was not there. Joe Montana, not there. Steve Young, not there. Very odd, but they had 100 nonetheless. A lot of Steelers to get to. Some players actually made note of this in their speech. They were joking, but I don't know if they love the time restriction. You can't have it go on forever, but they were held to 6 to 8 minutes. Some went over, and then that actually did go into Joe Buck, for example, who only got a few minutes because someone went over in front of him in Cliff Harris. What are your thoughts on the weekend, how the Hall of Fame did it, just from watching at home? And then do you think that having that many in one weekend and that many for one team actually can be a negative? I know they were forced into it because of the pandemic, but it did seem like it really jammed a lot and certainly allowed players and builders and people, Ed Sable, Bill Nunn, et cetera, that had passed away or maybe had been waiting for 30 plus years and weren't as known to the casual fan to get a very minimal time or none at all, really, if you're including those who passed away. Obviously.
I think the NFL was in the Hall of Fame, actually.
Sure.
They were in a tough position just because of what happened last year. They had to get everything in. And, obviously this shouldn't be unless we have another, a world catastrophe again.
You never know, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It shouldn't be an issue again, right. At least not next year.
Right.
But I do agree with you that I think those guys, but I don't know what you do about it, honestly. I think they should have. They had enough time, obviously, to try to map that out. And if you want to pick out one thing that didn't go well, that would be it. I thought, in general, I liked the idea about the 6 minutes. I think you have a year to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
No, nobody wants to hear for you for more than 6 minutes. You just drowned out. You're just thanking too many. Nobody cares.
Yeah, Ray Lewis.
Get to the highlights.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Get to what you're thankful for. Get to what your the theme of your speech is, and then move on. The best thing that I thought, actually, I don't know if you agree or not, but I thought this the quality of the speeches, and maybe it's because of the 6 minute time limit.
Yeah,
I think they were as good as speeches by the inductees as I can remember. Palomalu, everyone knows he's not a speaker. He doesn't like the spotlight and all that. But I thought what he said was powerful. I think Jimbo Covert was really good. Peyton Manning on the future of football. I just thought, in general, everyone, for the most part, that spoke did a heck of a job, and they had a good message and an interesting message. And, that's what I took from the weekend is the quality of the speeches by the guys going into Canton.
I do think the time restriction is necessary. Peyton Manning actually joked about this. That Ray Lewis was just finishing his speech from 2018. And everyone laughed, and Ray Lewis got up and did a laugh as well. But it was long. I think the point is, we're joking with you, Ray, but that was ludicrously long. It felt like it was an hour when I was watching at the time. So, yeah, cutting down the speeches. Every Hall of Fame should do this, honestly. I know actually the WWE Hall of Fame, I know your son's a fan of professional wrestling. They've actually flirted with the idea. And I don't know if the NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, is never going to do this because it's kind of insulting, but they've floated with the idea of ranking it like a card, where, for example, when Chris Jericho gets inducted, they'll give him 20 minutes because everyone knows him. He's obviously a Hall of Famer, first ballot, etc., all the accolades. But when Hacksaw Jim Duggan was inducted, for example, you're only getting 4 minutes because you're in, but people now who haven't been around for 20, 30 years don't know you anymore. Your stature's not with Jericho, for example. That's just two guys I'm randomly throwing out there. They have that has been floated out that they would rank it like a card, and your stature would deduct how many minutes you no longer have. Now, I don't think the Pro Football Hall of Fame will do that because a lot of guys wait 30 years. Cliff Harris, for example, they're not going to want to give him 2 minutes and then give Peyton Manning 10 minutes. I don't think Peyton would even feel comfortable doing that. However, I think keeping it to 6 or 8 is awesome. I do think everyone's speeches hit exactly what they wanted to hit on. I think Ederin James's speech was the best one of the entire weekend, especially with the message that was sending, because he did deal with that. I even know that he is still dealing with that in some business dealings in terms of what people think he looks like and the stereotype of what that guy should be. His teammates and Peyton and Tony Dungy talked about. They knew he was dealing with that and had other people feel he was like that, but it wasn't who he was at all. And the whole comment of gold teeth to a gold jacket and inmate number 333. I mean, that was really cool, and it was subtle, but it sent a message that, hey, don't judge a book by its cover. John Lynch's speech, I thought was perfected well. The only thing I found interesting that he kind of glossed over John Gruden after hitting on all of his coaches, and Gruden's the only one he won a Super Bowl with. So I don't know if that's still a frictional relationship. That was kind of interesting to me. Charles Woodson crying up there, Peyton Manning telling jokes, but then seemingly getting a little bit emotional and telling stories. I think everyone's speech, Polamalu, Cowher, Jimmy Johnson, their speeches were great. I do think, Mike, the only thing, two things I would change. And this was discussed up in the press box, and I'm sure people are going to roll their eyes about media, criticizing anything, because it was a great experience, first class all the way, and they were in a tough spot having to induct that many people. I do think the Sunday ceremony, which, to be fair, it was the technical 2021 class. So that was supposed to be the people that were going to be speaking this weekend, no matter what. Obviously, the Saturday night was the year earlier, and they jammed it together and did their round tables and all the other events together. But 2021, I think, kind of got brushed off a little bit while being there, because they did so much for 2020 and it was bigger and they had more people that they were inducting in that group. 2021 included Peyton, Calvin Johnson, Charles Woodson. You could argue a little higher in stature of a class, certainly that year's worth of a class, but they were less people. It was Sunday night, and I'll be honest, Mike, you saw the coverage. We were a little fatigued by that point. I only had Faneca that night. Bill Nunn didn't get a speech, obviously, with having passed away. There was just a video package. I did hear that wasn't even played on TV. That's unfortunate. That's probably because of time. But you're a little fatigued. I mean, I'm getting on the road then, looking to get home at midnight. It didn't probably get as much steam as Saturday night. And I think to fix that, Mike, that ceremony probably should have been earlier in the night. It was later. That didn't start till 7 o'clock. Yeah. Everybody was exhausted. I think I know because of TV, it's probably why they had to do that. But if you make that an afternoon ceremony, like I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony, that normally is a Sunday afternoon. So they don't do gold jacket, obviously, but I could have seen doing the Sunday ceremony earlier. I also think, unfortunately, I don't know if you noticed this, it was announced, there were not as many gold jacket of current Hall of Famers there on Sunday as on Saturday night. And that's unfortunate, because that's, again, the class of the year. I get a lot of them are older, but that sucks that they didn't all stay. But maybe they would have if it was Sunday afternoon. 1,000 people in terms of fans were not there that were there the night before. It was 1,000 less in terms of attendance. That was noticeable. They had to jam seats in to try to cover up for that issue, but it was 18,000+ to 17, close numbers, great numbers overall, but 1,000 less than Saturday for the current year's class. And also, I do think the way they rank the speeches a bit odd. I agree with that. I mean, I get Charles Woodson. If you're going back to college, he certainly is up there as an elite statured first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. But I thought it was weird Peyton Manning was in the middle of the pack and didn't get last. I think he should be last. Yeah, I think Peyton Manning should have been last. I know that maybe that might have been because of TV. They wanted people to hang there and watch it in the middle and not dip out and then wait for Peyton and then tune back in. But I thought if you're going to go fairly off of stature, you go Woodson second to last, and then Peyton Manning should have been last. And also even Saturday Saturday night. I think Troy, especially after surprising people, being such a popular figure even for non-Steeler fans by showing up late because of COVID and then eventually testing negative, surprising people at the parade. We knew he was, it kind of leaked that he was going to be there in the ceremony, but we did not know he was going to be there at the parade. I thought he should have been last on Saturday. You had fans walking out with Cowher speaking. They might not have been Steeler fans, but that sucks too. You have the two coaches going after the distinguished player. I thought he should have been last.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if this is it necessary to tell people when people are going?
Maybe you leave it.
Would that be able to help?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just don't put it out there. And then people are forced to, if you're interested in it or you want to see the person, just tease it going into the commercial break. Who's up next? I don't remember ever prior to this year. Maybe I didn't pay enough attention, but I don't ever remember them giving out a list as far as when people are speaking. Just let people go. And they also have to have this common sense that put your headliners 75% through the show. Nothing against the Cliff Harrises and John Lynch's and people like that.
Andrew Pearson,
nobody's sticking around to watch them. You put them up, and then you put if you want a strong rating, go back to back Steelers or something.
I thought
everyone knows the audience that Pittsburgh brings for football.
Yeah, and at the stadium,
together.
They made a joke every event we were at. Here for Steeler Nation again, because the tabletop were out in full force. It was only 2 hours away. It was a full-on Steelers contingent. It was really a Steelers celebratory weekend. I think that was the only thing that I thought that was weird. Peyton Manning being in the middle there and having actually less time than Woodson. I don't know. Woodson again. He defensive player. He's definitely the guy. Him and Polamalu, who was the night before. But Peyton really was not treated like the headliner. And when I was at, say, for example, again, the baseball, that was the year Ken Griffey Jr. got inducted. There were others. Mike Piazza, Hall of Fame catcher, was also getting inducted. People were winning awards, etc. Griffey was last. He got more time, and they made a bigger deal of him. They flat out ranked it. And maybe that's not nice, but that's what it is. Like everybody knows who the headline. Everyone knows who the headline guy is, especially with Manning when you had multiple teams, multiple media contingent, tons of fans with Denver and the Colts, and obviously others add multiple teams too, like Griffey. But you're getting a lot of people there. Outside of the Steelers, I think the second fan group was for Peyton individually, and he was in the middle. That was kind of weird. Mike, we do have to quickly wrap up, though. Just your thoughts on Kevin Dotson. He had to fit in last year. He played admirably, but Tomlin kind of sending a message a little bit to him that, hey, you've not earned anything here. You still need to keep on the work. And that is very, very true. They have a group that certainly is in question, needs to improve themselves, and has certainly not been impressing to this point in camp. But just overall with Kevin Dotson, did you like that message from Tomlin? What do you think of him and his impact that could be?
I honestly, I think this is one of those things where you have to hear it in order to, or maybe you have to be there in order to really get a feeling for it. Because I just have a hard time believing that Mike Tomlin is going to call out a second-year guy.
Yeah.
For that, I could look at it. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying this because I didn't hear the comment. I'm reading it. I think he has done nothing to earn a first-team reps. What are we talking about? He's a second-year guy who hasn't worked.
Sure.
That sounds harsh, but I can look at it as also saying he's done nothing, meaning he hasn't practiced yet this year.
He's telling
what
the
are we
truth.
Talking about? He's a second guy who hasn't worked. If you're a negative person, you could say he hasn't worked. He hasn't worked. Tomlin, if you're asking Tomlin, he's probably saying when he's saying he hasn't worked, he hasn't been on the field practicing with the team.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's not. I don't want to say it's overblown, but I think the story will become week one against the Buffalo Bills if Kevin Dotson isn't the Steelers' left guard. I'd be willing to bet everything I have that he will be, barring an injury.
Yeah,
he's the best. Yeah. Yeah, he's one of their linemen.
And everyone else has struggled there
last year. Yes, he's going to be their guard.
You're right.
And I don't believe, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't believe Mike Tomlin was calling this guy out or trying to embarrass him or sending any sort of maybe a small message. But I think this was sort of overplayed by certain people in the media.
Yeah, and again, we definitely do that at times. Maybe not all the time, but we certainly do that at times. It's something that you're going to take note of because as you do read it, as you even do hear it, even standing there, it did sound harsh. And Tomlin has been a little bit surly to media and with answering a lot of questions during camp. He hasn't seemed thrilled with what he's seeing, what he's hearing, what he's being asked, which makes sense, especially with the offensive line. It has struggled. It has not looked great. Even after the game on Thursday in the Hall of Fame game, it looked okay, and people are praising it that it looked its best in a while, which isn't saying that much of a compliment. I'd imagine he's going to be the starting left guard. I'd imagine that Banner and others are going to need to come back for this offensive line to perform. I'd imagine they're going to start as well. But the offensive line as a group has not been able to practice that much. Banner hasn't really been able to be on the field that much. It's weird to be that harsh for a second-year player who last year had to play more than anyone ever expected him, so you almost take whatever he gave you and you're happy with it. But I think Tomlin was being literal, maybe didn't mean to be as harsh. He hasn't worked, meaning he hasn't really been working on the field. And Tomlin's not giving anything to anybody if you don't actually practice. You can't get on the field, even if it's not your fault. If that's the case, he doesn't want to just give things to people when they're that young. But it was weirdly harsh, very similar to the comments that Cam Hayward made when Alex Highsmith was compared to him, where he basically said, he's not ready there yet. He got to make his own name. I don't want him compared to me right now. That sounded a little harsh, honestly. But that did pump the brakes in the comparison. Everybody shut up about it. And maybe Alex Highsmith went to work and said, hey, this guy doesn't want compared to me right now, meaning I gotta get down my nose and I gotta get a little better as well. So maybe they're trying to send messages as well. But
the other thing is, you know this because you attend all those press conferences. When Mike Tomlin gets off the field or after a game, he has that intensity in his eye.
Yeah.
He's sweating. He's totally into it. You're getting him right after practice.
I get it.
Meaning the media is right after practice.
Right.
He's totally into it. Who knows what he said to the team going off the field or whatever.
Sure.
That's just the way Mike Tomlin is as a person. He's so his intensity is almost at a 10 all the time. And I think that also led to him sounding, what came across. If you talk to him in the middle of the week, whatever, at a Tuesday press conference, Mike Tomlin isn't saying that. You're getting him right, just like after a game. His eyes are staring at you, and
I totally agree. And I told even Nick Faribault, who does a lot of those as well for us at Steelers Now, that if you go in asking a negative question, trying to get a negative answer, he's going to be mean to you. You need to kind of massage it and dance around it. If you want him to kind of go at a guy, you need to do it in a little bit of a delicate way. If you just say, hey, Kevin Dotson hasn't been out here, or Alex Highsmith has been rough or something, if you go too negative, then he's going to be upset. And I do think he's been frustrated and he's coming right off the field. So a lot of these answers have been kind of rough, but I don't think he meant to be as cruel as it sounded, but it did sound kind of harsh. Right. So we got to bring it up here. That'll close up this show. We'll see what we can do the rest of the week. So Mike, thanks for doing this with the issues that we dealt with, but nonetheless, I'd rather get your voice if nothing else so we can hear your takes. Not that seeing you in the nice weather there wasn't making me jealous.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the voice and not the ugly mug. So maybe that'll work for the rest of the week. We'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see. But I did enjoy the weather in the background there. So I hope you and your family have a nice time and you keep up with that weather there. Of course, Mike joining us from vacation. This is another episode of Mic'd Up. And of course, check out all of the sites the rest of the week for all of our coverage. Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services at 412-849-5899.